put like the runtime of the film on the advertisement first. All like let people know ahead of time. There's 2 hours. Like, and most of the movies we watch are generally not 2 hours. So Oh right, until the until the very very end. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no, it was not. That's the thing. Is like even Israeli comedies are not exactly comedies in the classic sense of it. It's a little bit more cerebral than that. But at least a couple of moments though, you get a good couple of belly laughs. Oh, I haven't heard that. No. That's a good comedy duo for something like that. I appreciate that. That sounds good. All right, it's playing in town? Yeah. Really? Yeah. I've been waiting for everybody to review. Can I just say again, it's so embarrassing to say out loud. I still have not been to a movie at the theater since they rebuilt it. Like it's that long. This is a good thing. This is a good thing to have. Yeah. Sure. All right. Well, look. I take your advice very seriously. So if you think it's good afterwards, you tell me. That might be my first film back. Thank you, Josie.
We still have so much time.
I know. No, it's been this has been an unusual thing that we've been.
I know.
Like even early standing up here. Normally, it's like I look at the clock. I'm like, oh, 5 after 6. Yes. Wow.
It says Karov Adonai L'chol Karov.
Oh, nice choice.
Yeah.
Very nice choice.
I actually stole it from someone else who had it.
That's okay. It's not stealing. L'shem Amro. That's exactly you're sharing wisdom. With the world. Oh, I like that very much.
Yeah, it is a nice.
And it really did get out of there just in time. I was like I feel like every time I look at the news, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it wouldn't get out of there.
That poor guy. It's like.
He's okay.
He's doing okay.
Now. Yeah.
Let's hope that changes. All right. Good Shabbos, everyone.
Good
Shabbat Shalom. Okay, so I think we're going to just dive right in tonight. We're going to invite up Ann Silver, who's going to light and bless our 2 sets of Shabbat candles. Again, reminder to all of us that we light 2 sets, one for us here in Sag Harbor and one for the hostages, who we hope soon will be freed and able to light again on their own. Ann, do you need some help? Yes, I was going to say, you are our one other expert. It's good to know that there's someone else here who can manage, There could be fires. 6 years of rabbinical school, and, you two can light candles. Amen. Amen. Thank you.
Blessed are you, Adonai, God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you, Anne, very much. And we're going to begin our service of Kabbalat Shabbat on page 130. And again, page 130. And can't find a prayer book in your midst, you let us know. We'll make sure everybody's got one. Page 130 will follow.
Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Naria, naria, letzori, shenu nekadma fana vetoda. Naria, naria, letzori shenu, bismirot naria lo. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai. Lechu neranena, lechu neranena, lechu neranena, l'Adonai.
On page page 131.
Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash, Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz, Shiru Ladonai Baruchu Shemo, Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato, Safru Vagoim Kevodo Bechol Ha'amim Miliflotav Ki Gadol Adonai Hulal Meod Norahu Al Kol Elohim Yaidai Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash Shiru Ladonai Kol Haaretz Shiru Ladonai Baruchu Shemo Basru Meyom Leyom Yeshuato.
We're now on page 132, Or Zarua, toward the very bottom of the page.
Or Zaru ala Tzadik Uleishrei lev simcha. Or Zaru ala Tzadik Uleishrei lev simcha. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai Vehodu lezecher kodsho. Simchu tzadikim b'Adonai Vehodu lezecher kodsho.
We'll turn now to page 134, the very top.
Zamru Adonai Bechinor, Bechinor vekol zimra, Bachatzotzrot vekol shofar, Hariu lifnei HaMelech Adonai, Zamru Adonai Bechinor, Bechinor vekol zimra, Bachatzotzrot vekol shofar, Hariu lifnei HaMelech Adonai, Yiram hayamulo, Tevel veyoshveva, Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, Harim Yiraneinu, Lifnei Adonai kiva, Lishpot haaretz, Yishpot tevel betzedek, Ve'amim b'meisharim, Yiram hayamulo, Tevel ve'yoshveva, Neharot imcha uchaf yachad, Harim Yiraneinu.
We're now on page 135, Romamu, which is just in the middle of the page in Hebrew.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu, romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu lehar kodsho.
We turn now to the 29th Psalm, a psalm for Friday, page 136.
Mizmor leDavid, Avul Adonai b'nei Elim, Avul Adonai kavod vaos. Avul Adonai kevod shemo. Ishtachavul Adonai behadrat kodesh. Kol Adonai hamayim el hakavod hirim. Adonai hamayim rabim. Adonai hamayim rabim. Kol Adonai ba'koach. Kol Adonai behadar. Kol Adonai shover arazim. Vayishaber Adonai et arzei halvanon. Vayarkidem kemo egel Levanon vesirion. Kemo venremim. Kemo venremim. Kol Adonai chotzev lahavotesh. Kol Adonai yachil midbar. Yachil Adonai midbar kadesh. Kol Adonai yechol elai alot. Vayechesov ye'arot. Uvechalo kulo merkavod. Kulo merkavod. Kulo merkavod. Adonai lamabul yashav. Vayeshav Adonai melech leolam. Adonai oz le'amo yitein. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom.
Turn now to page 138 for Lecha Dodi. Reminder, we'll do our first, second, fifth, and ninth paragraphs, but tonight I think
We're gonna do a melody that maybe we haven't used in a while.
I was going to say, but it's one that actually I grew up with, so when Will sang it before,
Yeah.
it just, got a little bit into that nostalgia
Yeah,
thing that made me
yeah.
feel really nice. So if you don't know it, Lecha Dodi is one of the great examples in our tradition. This, Adon Olam, a few others, that have the widest variety of music from the widest variety of places. Contemporary, going back to, well, we won't say Mount Sinai, but at least some that are a little bit older. And this one, I think, as you said, is a little bit more on the...
I believe it's from the 60s.
Okay.
I believe it's from the 60s.
I'm not going to make a comment about whether that's older or not. Good times. Good times. It's a good times, Lecha Dodi. All right.
It's a good time.
So we'll follow Will. If you know it, sing along. If not, we'll learn it into the repertoire.
Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, nekabela. Shamor vezachor bidibur echad. Hishmianu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad ushmo echad. Leshem utiferet v'ditila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, nekabela. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, nekabela. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha. Ki hi mekor haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabla, nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela, hitoreri, kiva orech umiori, uri shir daberi, kevod Adonai alaich nigla. Chadodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela, boi veshalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha uvetzola, toch emuneam segula, boi chala, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela, lecha dodi, likrat kala, penei Shabbat, nekabela.
That's great. Please be seated. Feels more like the 60s already, right?
Yes.
That's great. We'll turn to page 140 as we conclude Kabbalat Shabbat, Psalm 92.
Tzadikata marifrach, keres balvanon iske, shetulim bevet Adonai, bechatzrot Eloheinu, yafrichu, od yenuvun beseva, deshenim verananim, ihiu lehagid, ki ashar Adonai tzuri velo avatabo.
We rise in body or spirit for the Chatzi Kaddish on page 144 and remain standing for the Baruch Hu on the next page. Yitkadal veyitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Alma divrach yirutei v'amlich malchutei.
B'chayechon u'vyomechon u'v'chayetecho Beit Yisrael. Bagala u'vizman kariv
Veimeru.
Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach, la'olam li'olam me'almaya, yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach. V'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal. Shemei dekudsha b'richu.
Richu.
Leila min kol birchata v'shirata.
Tushvechata v'nechemata, tamiron ve'alma.
Veimeru.
Amen.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. please be seated. Let's read together now in English on the top of page 149. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows.
Hafir yom mevi laila, avdil ben yom uvein laila, Adonai tzevaot shemo el chai, v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Amari v'aravi.
Amen. We turn now to page 150, and we'll read together in English toward the bottom of the page. Everlasting love you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel.
Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu v'hem nege yomam v'layla ve'avatecha tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Please join us on page 154.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let's read together on the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. As we turn to page 158, Michamocha at the top of the page.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה, נורא תהילות אוסף אלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלינו ואמרו, זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר כיפת אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Hashkivenu is on the top of page 160.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom vehamidenu shomreinu lechaim. Ushmor tzeiteinu, uvoenu, lechaim ushalom, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu lechaim.
Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim.
Amen.
We turn to Vishamru, very top of page 162.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Invite us now to rise in body or spirit as we begin the Amidah together on page 164. From that point on, we'll continue silently. As always, please go at your own pace. When you're finished at the end, if you're still standing, you may be seated.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi tehillatcha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. ויהיו לרצון אמרי פי וגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי אדוני צורי וגואלי
We'll turn now to page 371 as we offer our Mishaberach, our healing prayer for this evening. We begin by thinking of those in our community and connected to our community who are in need of that healing tonight. We pray for Ann Lieber, Lori Hertzen, Madeline Egelfeld, Rachel Bat Marsha, Sue Wartor, Abigail Blum, Kate Sherwood, Bensi Tepper, Amy and Warren Cass, Rivka Bat Rachel, Lorraine Danis, David Dowling, Sylvia Devora Bat Francis, Shelley Newmark, Diane Axelrod, Gabriella Spicer, David Kyle Klopman, Lorraine Davis, Kim Birnbaum, Deborah Block-Kroll, Sylvia Oren, Rachel Bat Ora, Peretz Ben Shlomo, and Israel Ben Yitzchak. In addition to those names that I just shared, if there's anyone that you're thinking of tonight and you're with us in the room, we'll start on this side of the room and work towards the back. And if you have names to share, just raise a hand, and then we'll come to this side of the room.
Miriam Bat Chaya Yaakov, Rachel Bat Chaya Yaakov.
Gerald Emanuel, Jackie Emanuel, Diane Esther, Kim Espinoza, Chris Hubbard, Susan Lanigan, Larry Mulholland, and me.
The Tempasky family, Diane Schwartz, Shelley Marie, Kenny, Mario, Honey, Rodman, Lee Judith, Frank Ryan, Judy Lipton, Warren, Rick Gold, Joel, Lowell, Erin Rubin, Noel, Nancy Hooper, and Cynthia.
For those watching at home, to add the names of your loved ones, we'll join together on page 371 with Will, just in the middle of the page.
Misheberach Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor habracha avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We now offer our prayer for Israel in time of war. Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors. You know that the Jewish people are one nation with one heart, and now that heart is broken. O healer of broken hearts, binder of their wounds, be with our brothers and sisters who've been taken captive and with the families of the victims. Watch over the hostages, break their bonds, and bring them out from darkness to light. Proclaim release to the captives, liberation to the imprisoned. Comfort the families, bring them under the shelter of your wings. Bring complete healing of body and spirit to all of the wounded. Bind up our wounds and grant us healing. Tzur Yisrael v'go'alo, rock and redeemer of the people Israel. Bless the state of Israel, the initial manifestation of our redemption. Shield it with your care, spread over it your shelter of peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Grace them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend us. Crown their efforts with victory. Bless the land with peace, its inhabitants with lasting joy. Shomer Yisrael, guardian of Israel. Strengthen and bless the defenders of Israel who stand guard on the land, in the air, and on the sea. And we see the promise of the psalmist realized. You turn my mourning into dancing, and my sackcloth into robes of joy. God protect, preserve, and restore peace and well-being to Israel, your people, and together we say,
Amen.
Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone. All right, so first, credit and thanks where it's due. Credit to Ari Weller for sending me something brilliant this week, and credit to the brilliance that I'm going to share to our Rabbi Emeritus, to Rabbi Leon Morris, and to a wonderful podcast he was a part of as part of Pardes, his place of learning, of teaching, the place that, God willing, soon we'll be able to go and visit him in Israel again, or at least get them back here. Yes, exactly. So he's part of a podcast, and they were talking about this week's Parsha, Parshat Vayera, not to be confused with Parshat Vayera, which also sounds exactly the same, but is not the same. This is a very full Parsha. We are most familiar with it from having read it a few weeks ago on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, reading about Akedat Yitzchak, and reading about the casting out of Hagar and Ishmael. It begins, though, with the, what's the fancy term for this? It's an Annunciation story, right? Where Sarah is expecting not to be able to have a child. Mysterious strangers appear. Abraham and Sarah welcome them into the tent. At the very end, before they leave, they give the good news that she will have a child, and that's sort of where it seems like it's going to, go in very happy direction. And then we take a very significant shift, because it turns out that those men are not just there to announce Isaac's eventual birth. They're actually on their way to destroy the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And so there's a very interesting beginning to the conversation that Rabbi Leon has. I'm not forgetting who he's speaking with, so I'll have to give credit to him after the fact. And you can go, by the way, I'm going to attempt to condense 40 minutes of very worthwhile discussion into 10. Go back and listen to the entire thing, because it's worthwhile. But there's some real brilliance here I just felt like I really wanted to share. So the first is the Torah itself. So we're talking now, and we get some very interesting things right off the bat. So, as I said, the end of the scene at the tents, and then the people who are with, right, again, doesn't describe them as angels. It's a later kind of conception of, but these messengers of God, they get up, and from there they gaze down upon the city of Sodom, and Abraham went along with them to send them off. Common custom where you sort of walk with your guests, take them, to the edge of town, and then you say goodbye. So here's the first interesting thing that happens. The eternal, great God then thinks to God's self, should I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Okay, first amazing thing, it's one of the very rare moments in the Torah, really rare moments in our entire sacred literature, where we get some insight into something going on in God's mind. Okay, and remember that this is an immediate challenge to especially medieval philosophy, which generally understands, right, God is omniscient, omnipotent, God is all things, God has always been. There isn't a possibility of God questioning God's own behavior, because God is God. Okay, but we'll leave that to the side. That's tomorrow's conversation. Come back tomorrow. Okay, but God basically is concerned, should I tell Abraham that I'm about to send these messengers of mine to go destroy an entire town? Why is God concerned? And Abraham is certain to become a great and populous nation, and through him all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. For I have selected him specifically, so that he may teach his children and those who come after him to keep the way of the eternal, doing what is right and what is just. Lasot tzedakah u'mishpat. Okay, right? Doing what is right and just, so that the eternal may fulfill for Abraham all that has been promised to him. Okay, now, the next verse is where really Rabbi Morris gets into the nitty-gritty. Okay, the Eternal One then said, okay, Za'akat Sodom va'Amorah, the outcry in Sodom and Amorah, how great it is, and their crime, how grave it is. Let me go down and determine whether they are wreaking havoc in equal measure to the shrieking that is coming to me. If not, I will know. Okay, so a couple interesting things that come here. The first is that the cry of injustice doesn't come from outside of the city. Okay, the language of the Torah here suggests that the cry is actually coming from within. So there is some element of the cities of Sodom and Amorah that know that things are out of control. They cry out for help, and yet they are incapable of actually changing their behavior. But the fundamental question, and the question of the podcast consideration, is what exactly is it that Sodom and Amorah did that was so bad that caused them to cry out, that caused God to send these messengers, that causes God to even come down, God's self, to see how bad it is? And it is so bad, in fact, that God is concerned about Abraham even seeing it. Again, potentially for a number of reasons, not least of which being perhaps he will become corrupted, right? I've chosen him to be the example of Tzedek and Mishpat. I don't even want him anywhere near this, so God is that concerned. But the text doesn't really tell us specifically until a much later conversation about what happens to those strangers when they come into town, which is, again, a conversation for another night. But Rabbi Morris's point is, before we even get to any of that stuff, we already know that the city is in bad shape. Okay, picture, New York City in the late 70s, early 80s, right? It's bad shape 10 times more, okay? So why are we concerned? There's really 5 things that Rabbi Morris identifies, and as he says, there are 5 things. The list could be 1,000, right? It could be way more than that, but here are 5 that he comes and identifies, and a few of them actually come from the same page of Talmud, page 109b in Masechet Sanhedrin, in a conversation that the rabbis are having, specifically offering numerous ideas as to what has really gone wrong. But here are again a few of them in no particular order. So the first is a quote from Ezekiel, much later on, looking backwards in time. What is it that Stone did so bad? Ezekiel says it was arrogance, in particular that they had plenty of bread and they had untroubled tranquility, but with all of that, with peace of mind, with everything that they needed, they didn't take care of those that didn't have, right? They didn't take care of the needy. So we learn right off the bat, okay, not such an uncommon story in human history, not so uncommon if we look around today, right? A tendency in that society to say, even though I have everything I could possibly ever need, right? I have every dollar, I have every piece of food, I've got every safety, every security, I'm still going to hoard it. I'm still going to be more concerned about me running out of it than taking care of the neediest of people who have no means to take care of themselves. Okay? So easiest one for us to immediately connect to for sure. The next one I thought was particularly brilliant. So here it says, the people of Sodom said, since we live in a land from which bread comes and has the dust of gold, okay, we have everything that we need. So why do we need travelers? Right? Why do we need people coming from outside of our town? We have everything that we need, as they come only to divest us of our property. Come, let us cause the proper treatment of travelers to be forgotten from our land. So what did they essentially do? Right? They isolate themselves. They basically say, we've got everything that we need. We don't want any outsiders coming in. We don't want these 3 random visitors coming into our town because they're only here to take our stuff away. Okay? We have everything that we need, so we're going to build it. And the way that Rabbi Morris phrases this is the much more powerful. He says, our first concept is to think, right, what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine is the worst thing imaginable. Right? I have everything I need, but I also want to take your stuff. This, he says, is even worse. Right? This is what's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. In other words, right, just don't come on my doorstep. You have what you've got on your end. Stay away from me. Stay away from my people. Stay away from my town. I don't want to have anything to do with you. Again, if any of this is sounding oddly familiar, okay, not just now, right, but throughout history. And we as Jews in particular have been on the other side of that equation more often than not, right? We are the ones on the outside looking in more often than not in history, precisely from this kind of logic. Third one, which is a little bit of an abstract example of the rabbis, good example of rabbinic rhetoric. So they give a hypothetical situation. We have a father who owns property, got a few different children. One of those children is doing all right for himself, happens to buy a piece of property right next to the father's property. Okay, father passes away. Now the siblings are dividing up the land, various parcels. So they could give this piece of land, right, the equal allotment to the son who happened to have already had property right next door, make those contiguous properties. And the other siblings purposely say, no, we don't want him to have that. So we're going to give him, right, the property furthest away from what he already owns. We're going to spite him intentionally, right? We could make this easy. Nobody actually really doesn't benefit from this, right? Everybody's getting the same amount of land. It's all the same good land. All that's happening is that the siblings are turning against the one other sibling who would benefit more than them simply because he already owns the adjacent property. Okay, so the way that Rabbi Morris sort of puts this is arbitrary cruelty. And he's checked on that a little bit by the other person that says it's not so arbitrary, right? These are siblings, they're doing it actually sort of to spite their own, which is pretty bad. But let's assume, right, that it's arbitrary. This happens all the time also, right? We're a certain amount of schadenfreude, right? We get a certain amount of perverse pleasure in seeing other people, maybe people that we have something to do with, right? They look like they're doing well. We don't want them to do so well, right? That old, I'm not even sure if this is true or not, but it's a classic rabbi quote, which is odd because it's about crabs. But in a giant, barrel of crabs, what happens, right, when one of them is about to escape, the other ones grab onto it and pull it back down into the bucket, right? Nobody gets out, okay? And that innate sense of cruelty is one of the other things that was characteristic of Sdom in that period of time. The fourth one is, again, classic example of rabbinic rhetoric, midrash, certainly not anything we imagine reflects reality. But they give this example of whenever guests would come to town. I know that goes against the previous one, but let's assume, right, they're still letting the guests come into town. They had beds for these guests, and they're very proud of these beds. And when somebody would come in, right, the beds were a certain length. Any of you that are super tall in this room, you may have had the experience in your life of trying to sleep in a bed that is not quite long enough for you. Okay, normal solution might be, bring something else, or whatever. According to this, the people of Sodom would just cut the person's feet off so that they would be the appropriate length. And when they were too short for the bed, they would stretch them out so that they would be on length. Now, again, we're not really talking about reality, we're talking about example. But what did Rabbi Morris say is the example of this? Forced conformity. Right? Somebody doesn't quite fit in. Rather than accepting them as they are, we're going to, stretch them out or make them shorter. We're going to make them look like us, we're going to make them talk like us. Right? Whether they want it or not, that's what's going to happen. Okay? And that sense, again, of forced conformity. Now, the last one, and I didn't even have to say it, knew this story already. It's a somewhat well-known piece of Talmud. Again, not necessarily reflecting history, but reflecting a teaching example of what a cruel society looks like. So there's a story of a young woman who would take bread out to the poor people, and ultimately, the people of Sodom wouldn't see it. She would do it kind of in secret. Okay, because she knew that was not an accepted thing. Word got out. And so the rest of the people smeared her with honey, positioned her on the wall of the city, and hornets came and consumed her. Okay, absolute, again, cruelty. But Rabbi Morris makes a point to say this isn't just cruelty on its own. That's bad enough. But what this is responding to kindness with cruelty. Right? Seeing somebody who's going out of their way to do the kind thing, and then not just not allowing it to happen or making it harder to happen, but doing everything that you can to make it so that that kind person struggles for the kindness that they're doing. Okay? So in each of these examples, which, as Rabbi Morris says, are just a few of the many examples just on that one page of Talmud, there are many, many others if you search them out, are describing in every conceivable way what a society looks like when it is broken at its very core. What it looks like when it is more concerned, again, with self and self-preservation, when it looks at people, again, who don't fit the mold and forces them to fit into whatever that mold may be, when it looks at kindness with an eye, again, of rejection to the point in which the only response to it is to basically blot it out through the acts of cruelty. And ultimately speaking, the arbitrary nature of it, right? Sometimes cruelty for its own sake. And lastly, the one that I think still strikes me the most, right? What's mine is mine and what's yours is mine. That sense of isolation, right? That sense of saying, right, we don't even want anybody else coming in here. We're not trying to take anybody else's things, but we just want to close the doors and leave it be. And needless to say, okay, every one of us can understand this text and say, on the one hand, Sodom is, a totally different universe. This is not our world. This is nothing that we would ever associate with. And yet at the same time, we could understand not just here, right? Not just recently. This is a human reality. At some point in history, every single culture, every single major city or metropolis has some element of this playing out. And frankly, every small town at some point or another has one or many of these elements at play. So on the one hand, thank God, God decides that, complete destruction of cities is not necessarily the best way to go, although that comes up a few more times as time goes on. But at the same time, it's serious enough that God, again, comes down from heaven to see with God's own eyes, put that in quotation marks, and is so concerned about it, doesn't even want to tell Abraham how bad the town is. Doesn't even want him to come along and see it on his own because he's worried about how corrupting it can be. And that, again, we don't just end up with 5 examples, we end up with hundreds of them. And I think what Rabbi Morris says at the end is the most powerful. The question is posed back to what do you do to counter this, right? What do you do to try to avoid having a society that is like this? And while he says there's no one particular answer necessarily, one of the things that he has been feeling more and more is how important community is, how important being part of something, important it is to find communities on a national scale, on a local scale, on a religious scale, on a close to heart scale, that are the opposite of all of these characteristics, right? The ones that are looking to do good acts, who look at kindness as the top of the pyramid, the thing that we should shoot for in every instance, the place that is not going to isolate itself or turn people away. And one of the things I'm proudest about this congregation has nothing to do with me, is how much it welcomes in people, right? How many times people have walked through that threshold, old temple or new, who'd never been here before, right? Who are warmly welcomed. Don't think for a second that that is the case in every shul. Okay, sadly is the case in fewer and fewer of them. Okay, for lots of complicated reasons. Okay, that idea of what we do here is not small. What we do on Shabbat, what we do last night when we watched the film, okay, all of these things, they're not small things. They are actually the things that matter the most. Because otherwise, without that, we end up in this situation. We end up, whether we realize it or not, being part of a society, part of a culture, part of a conception of life that values all of these things instead of the things that ultimately matter the most. And if we are all, in fact, derived from Abraham and Sarah, what is it that we're told we're meant to do? What is Abraham's charge? To teach the future generations about tzedek and mishpat, right? About justice and about righteousness, about behaving in the best possible way. So I will simply say I'm proud to be the rabbi of this community, because I can say as much as anybody can say this is not what we are about. And I'm grateful to our Rabbi Emeritus, to my teacher and friend, for continuing to teach this kind of Torah, even when he's all the way in Israel and we're all the way here. And I'm grateful to Ari Weller, who passed on this information. And a reminder to all of you, lest you assume that the rabbi already has an idea for what to talk about on Friday nights, don't make that assumption. Send me stuff. If you hear something good, definitely send it my way. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'll invite us now to rise as we turn to page 586, at the bottom of the page, Aleinu L'Shabbat.
Aleinu L'Shabbat Ladon HaKol, Lateit Gilgal Yotzei Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoyei HaRatzot, Velo Samanu Kemishpachot HaAdama, Shelo Sam Chelkeinu Kahem, Vegor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, V'anachnu Korim U'mishtachahim U'modim, Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Page 591.
V'hemar B'chai Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, Bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, U'shemo echad.
Ask those in mourning and those observing art site to please remain standing. Everyone else may be seated at this time. We think first of those who've passed in our community in recent months. Heather Abrams, David Amanoff, Mal Daphner, Judith Barry Emanuel, Richard Gambino, Barbara Goldfarb, Lita Goldsmith, Rita Hertzfeld, Jesse Hirsch, Barbara Kushner, Robert Lykoff, Jeffrey Miller, James Pappas, Danielle Lisa Rigg, Janice Tucker Samble, William Speck, Harlan Spitz, Charles Sparopoulos, Ronald Seth Tempowski, Alan Stephen Weinstein, Ronald Weller, and Susan Wolfson. We also mark the art sites that occurred during the last week for Jerome Alpern, Lillian Bernstein, Marion Bloom, Oscar Brill, Erwin Daniels, Deborah de Rothschild, Richard Agosi, Hannah Elias, Herbert Fabricant, Florence Feinstein, Carol Goldblatt, Esther Greenberg, Robert Green, Milton Gross, Pincus Grossman, Fanny Halpern, Morris Kellman, Dora Koffler, Evelyn Lauder, Rose Lefkowitz, Roland Graham Mason, Louis Rossick, Katie Rugendorf, William Scavron, Morton Schoenbach, Teresa Spitz, Bertha Zuckerman, Harry Tiemann, Irving Weller, Claire York, and Hannah Zuckerman. Is anyone else saying Kaddish for anyone tonight that we didn't mention?
Jack Exton.
Invite those in mourning to join me on page 598. If it's your custom to rise alongside them, you may do so at this time. Yitkadal ve'yitkadash shemei rabbah.
Amen.
Be'alma divrach chirutei ve'amlich malchutei. V'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. B'agala b'zman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach la'alam u'le'almei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh ve'yithadar ve'yit'aleh ve'yithalal shemei dekudsha berichu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Amen.
Zichronam livracha, may every one of their memories be for a blessing. All right, please be seated. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Will.
Shabbat shalom.
A few important announcements. First, of course, to join us for our Oneg Shabbat immediately afterwards. There's no sushi this week, I'm sorry. I know that's apparently the big thing, but we have plenty of fruit and cheese left over from last night and all the things, so come eat. And most importantly, enjoy that community thing we were just talking about. Spend some time together. Reminder services begin tomorrow at 10 o'clock, followed by Torah study, which again, you can join us here live or you can be online. Either way, we're happy to see you. Reminder on Sunday, 9:30, the Lay-Led Minyan continues on Zoom. Again, welcome to anybody who'd like to join at any time. Also, the rest of this week, Hebrew School on Monday and Wednesday. This coming Thursday is our Interfaith Thanksgiving service, if I'm not mistaken. And this again will happen at the Old Whalers Church just down the street where we spent our couple of years while wandering in the desert, so to speak. And so it's always nice to see our friends there, always nice to be together in community, especially now. So I hope very much that you'll be able to join us. I have no control over it, but there is no streaming version of it, so it really is, come and be there. And there's pie afterwards, so, that's always, it's a
Pie
big,
is fun.
Pie is fun. Pie is guaranteed a good time. They also have very good coffee, for whatever it's worth. Very good coffee. I think those are all of my things. And, yes, please.
Anti-Semitism Committee.
Yes, when?
Tuesday at 7.
Okay, Anti-Semitism Committee, Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Again, anybody who's interested in finding out more, please talk to Ann Silver. Anything else? Anybody else? Okay, so I think,
We're going to close our service today with Shalom Aleichem, which you can find on page 627. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitrem leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
please rise in body or spirit for Kiddush, page 123. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, mohorei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabahat kodsho b'ahavah uvratzon inchilanu, zikaron lemahaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
Chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam,
Amotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everybody. Come next door. Have some dry. Oh boy. Dryer somehow. Ooh.